Welcome to the Tech Sales Funnels podcast, where we dive deep and answer the ultimate question, how did you hack into tech sales? Each week, we bring you inspiring stories, proven strategies, and insider tips from top performers who've cracked the code to break into tech sales and thrive. Whether you're just starting out, making a career pivot, or ready to level up, this is your go-to space for actionable advice and real-world success stories. Let's crack the code together, because hacking into tech sales isn't just a dream, it's your next move. Now with your host, the founder of Tech Sales Funnels and the tech sales hacker himself, Davison De Silva.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Tech Sales Funnels podcast. This is Davison De Silva, your host again. I'm super excited today to bring Carson Heady. Carson, first, he's an amazing human being. You will see on his face and his words, all the things he says. He's just a great guy, down to earth. Now, he's a salesman on fire. He's also one of the top sales managers at Microsoft. I got to know him a little bit better when I worked at Microsoft in the Tech for Social Impact organization. He was one of the managers. I'm super happy to have him here today. He's going to introduce himself, talk a little bit about what he does now, and then we're going to dive deep into the question, how did he hack into tech sales and how he made his way to Microsoft. So I'm bringing Carson to the stage. Here we go. Hey, Carson, welcome.
Davison, good to see you, man.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving.
Back at you. I'm thankful for this conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm super grateful. I know we talked before, and we had some not challenges scheduling, but you're just a super busy guy, and I'm super grateful that you are here today. And thank you so much. I was able to see you in Dallas a few weeks ago, and it was awesome. It's good to reconnect.
Yeah, back at you. I love what you're doing, and some of the conversations that you're having with people I respect a great deal. So keep up the great work.
Thank you so much, Carson. Now, I was looking in LinkedIn today, just prior to this call, and I wanted you to this is a very inspiring and very motivational podcast. I wanted people to see, even if they're considering tech sales or if they don't know what tech sales is, and be inspired to the people that I bring to the podcast. So I wanted you to start telling us, what do you do? Like, who are you, right? Who's Carson right now? Just high level. And then let's dive deep into your first job. How did you hack into tech sales? Where did you came from? And we're gonna walk all the way to Microsoft. And what are you doing now? So,
yeah, no doubt. So again, thanks for having me, Davison. So Carson Heady, I am a husband and a father of three, and I am a student of sales. I love sales a great deal. I've written 5 books about it. My latest just came out, The Show Must Go On. And I also wrote Salesman on Fire, which is probably my most popular book, as well as The Birth of a Salesman series. And I've been at Microsoft for 11 years. Prior to that, I was at AT&T for about 9. And I made a couple of jumps, hops, and skips in between, worked at a small consultant firm. And that's where I started what we now call social selling. Back when it was kind of an anomaly, I was tasked with going out and having to book meetings with C-levels. And I knew that these folks were out on LinkedIn, so I used it to get myself meetings. And I ultimately ended up using those in tech sales as well, and became known as the number one social seller in all of technology. I co-host a couple of podcasts, and just really fortunate to be able to be in sales. With Microsoft, I currently lead the Americas team for Tech for Social Impact, as you mentioned, Davison. It is, we support over 400 nonprofits in North America out of our channel. And it's a great gig. I was tapped to come over and help build a sales culture in the space, because the dollars that this team claims get funneled back into reinvesting into our philanthropic efforts within the company. I like to think of it as kind of the best kept secret. My way into tech sales was very unorthodox, and I think that's why hopefully this will be valuable for your audience is, if I can break into tech sales, much less if I can become the number one social seller in tech, literally anybody can do this stuff. I've been very intentional about building community with my customers, with partners, with different colleagues and resources, and being able to demystify that value for my client. But then furthermore, really being able to understand, like, how can I go out and solve the big problems? And the biggest problems I ever try to solve are the problems that my leadership outlines, which is, we need to get better line of business relationships. We need to get into the board. We need to get into the C-level. And so using LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, social selling techniques to create any relationship that I've needed, being able to, in essence, map out all of our solution plays and how I execute and how I sell, and then being able to really gamify that. I've generated over $1 billion in cloud revenue that never would have existed without LinkedIn and some of these tools, how we're using AI today, and those sorts of things. So I'll talk today about how I broke into tech sales, and hopefully it'll be helpful to your audience.
Yeah. So just a quick observation here. Carson's, it's, as you can see, it's hard, not hard, at least for me. Maybe it's my second language thing. He's on fire the whole time. He's always. Sometimes you watch, a YouTube video, you have to like put 1.5 2x. Carson's the opposite. You gotta slow down a bit so you can capture all the things. Because if you go back to the things he just said, he just walked you through like how he was able to not only be in tech sales but be successful in tech sales, which you could spend a whole day just diving into all the strategies and things that he just described, which is what everyone in sales wants to do. So that's going to be for another time, but I would love to talk. He can talk all day about it, all the strategies, and I highly recommend you to go to his books. I have one here, and the other one is coming on the mail.
Thank you.
I'm excited to read. Now, Carson, first job, sales. How did you get into tech sales? How was that a recommendation? Did you just apply online? Was that LinkedIn at that time? Tell us a little bit more about that very first one.
Yeah. So what's funny is, so I mentioned I was at AT&T, and when I got into AT&T, my role there was telecommunications and then later advertising. Okay. And I got laid off, and I legitimately thought that I would be able to just translate my skills into any other sales director type role. I was wrong. I ultimately ended up about a year later. First off, I wrote a book at the time, and that's important because part of this story is about personal brand and how you're creating and living your brand and getting your brand out there so that you can create the right relationships. But the other part is all about the relationships. I made a couple of my next gig after AT&T, I worked for a smaller organization, and the only reason that I got that job was because I wrote that book. That's what made my resume stand out.
Interesting.
And so a big part of this is, how do you live your brand? How do you make your resume stand out from the crowd? There's a lot of things now that you can do, like, doing a podcast, writing a blog, creating video content, creating a video resume. Ways that you're reaching out and creating relationships with people that you don't already have or that might be hiring managers. Mm-hmm. But I got that role. I made a relationship there that led me to my next role. And I ultimately made a relationship there that recruited me to Microsoft. And it was not from a tech background. It was legitimately, they knew me as a salesperson. They knew me as a sales leader. They knew what I would bring to the table. There was a relatively new role that was being created in Microsoft at the time. And it was a business sales specialist role. And it was in the stores channel of all places. And I didn't have retail background. Now, I had briefly run a division of retail stores for a wireless company, but I didn't really have retail background. I was very unorthodox as a hire. And but it was all about the relationship. In fact, what's ironic is that this person who recruited me and we didn't really get along very well. We had been fierce competitors in the prior role, but they recruited me because they knew I would kill it, and they knew that we would work well together. Is fighting on the same team, and we did. Nice. We were number one on the business scorecard for 8 quarters in a row, and that ultimately led me to my next gig. But when I think about breaking into tech sales, I think about the things that you can control. The great relationships, going out. At the end of the day, you've got to de-risk the decision that a hiring manager makes. And on paper, I might have been a wild card. I might have been a risk. Now, they didn't view me as a risk because they knew what I would bring to the table. So you need to find, I always talk about, like, going to your own network first. Do you have any network that's already in tech sales that can either vouch for you, that is a hiring manager, that can make introductions for you? That's a key element because that's a warm lead. That's a hot lead. When you can get a referral, get an invitation, get an introduction, those things are critical. The other thing, controlling what you can, that brand element. What does your LinkedIn show? What are you putting out into the world that would lend credibility that you would be successful in tech sales? Recently, probably about 2 years ago, I got someone hired at Microsoft that I had hired 15 years ago in advertising. They were the best salesperson, probably the best salesperson I've ever seen. And I have wanted them in this company for years. And, lo and behold, we had talked about a few different roles. Lo and behold, the planets eventually aligned, made the referral, made the warm introduction into the hiring manager. This person got hired. They are crushing it. So I think the key element is the relationships, but then also being able to have that strong pedigree that backs up that you're going to be able to come in and be successful. Because I'm confident that, a lot of times with tech sales, it's important to be able to come with that acumen, that ability to sell. And the last thing I would say that I think is really important is being able to build your story. I think it's important that people have a career walking deck. This is a concept that over the last few years has gained a lot of prominence. I have had one for about 5 years, but about 2 years ago, I had a mentor of mine that I saw their format, the way that they did their walking deck, and I stole it. I was like,
I've seen it. I haven't seen anything.
I was like, this is amazing. I need this. And I adopted mine. In fact, I recently went through updating mine.
Nice.
And what it does is it tells a narrative of your career, but it also shows experiences, wins, 30, 60, 90. There's a lot of things you can incorporate into it. And I'm happy to share, kind of a bare bones version with anybody that reaches out. There's some proprietary information about a couple of deals that I've closed that I think really tell a story. But you want to show experiences because you want somebody that reads that walking deck to say, yeah, wow, I can see this person in this role. So again, controlling what you can. There's going to be warm relationships that you can nurture and cultivate and create. There's going to be new relationships that you can go out and cultivate. There's going to be things you can control around your brand and your reputation. But at the end of the day, you want somebody to say, yes, I can see this person working for me in tech sales. And that's what's going to ultimately get you there.
Wow, that was really, really, really awesome. I like the word they use, the risk, right? And you want to put yourself in the shoes of the hiring manager.
Yeah.
Right. And then who is this person? It's all about, at the end of the day, it's all about the whole know, like, and trust, right? We talk about all the time. Do the hiring manager know that person? Do they like them? They have to like because they're going to be working, 40 hours, 50, 60 hours a week. Now, the trust is where the risk, I think the higher the level of trust, the risk, right? The risk level goes down. And no, that's awesome. How do people, you're like a master of storyteller, and you talk about the walking deck. I have seen the walking deck. I have used as an example for my own, and but at the end of the day, you're super good at actually getting numbers and telling stories, and maybe because you have done for so many years over and over again. How can someone start that skill? Like, it's not something that's natural. It's not something that a lot of people, they have the talent. Like, I use the analogy of a water bottle. Like, because of the label on the front of the water bottle, the value changes, right? So the water is the same. It's just the label, and you were really a master of making the label look so good. And so, can you help people who are listening to this today? How to develop that skill?
No doubt. I had a manager a couple of years ago that I followed this person for 6 years across like 3 or 4 different roles, and it was very intentional. I find if you find people that you want to work for and with, you should absolutely, work toward doing just that. That was important to me, and I learned a lot from her. And one of the things that she instilled in me was, it's really important to have the tangible outcomes of what your inputs are. And furthermore, she always say, like, what got you here isn't going to get you to the next level. You need to understand what is at the next level and what you need to do. And what I started doing, Davison, was I'd start to And I do it still today. Because as you know, like we'll do appraisals twice a year, and we'll do
Mhm.
our inputs, and we'll put in like our results and how we're all the KPIs and how we're measured. I started keeping journal files, and it doesn't require a lot. Like, I mean, I might literally just make a bullet point of on this day I did this, I gave this presentation.
Mhm.
I presented to 500 sellers in this segment, or this day I did a coaching and training for this group, or this day we closed a deal, blah blah, whatever the case may be. The point is, take a moment to like do an inventory of the tangible outcomes that you're driving, because at the end of this, like especially when you're looking to break into a new role and into tech sales, you've got to be able to articulate these, your inventory of experiences and of outcomes and results. There's nothing better as kind of a calling card into your next gig than to be able to say like, hey, I've experienced a lot of the things that I will experience in tech sales, whether it's going out and prospecting. I have a process where over the last year, I've used AI and LinkedIn to create 80 net new C-level or board level or VP level relationships with executives in my customer patch. And I can articulate that entire story. That's going to catch somebody's attention as a sales leader. So being able to talk about these things, you're always going to be accumulating skills, right? When I hire for entry level, like I'm cognizant that a lot of people don't have a ton of wealth of experience, but I'll roll the dice on somebody if they can talk about something they did in college around managing a program. Or I love people that played sports, because a lot of times there's a very competitive element. There's a collaborative teamwork mentality. There's things that you can look for, and so. Anything you can do to play up those experiences that people are looking for is important. And so, your look at your walking deck or your LinkedIn or your resume almost like an ice sculpture. When you start, it's just a huge chunk of ice, but the whole time you're chiseling here, you're chiseling there. That's your story. You're adding little nuances here and there, and everything you do is a new experience that you're able to add into that body of work. I've been really fortunate. Last year, I presented to our CEO Satya Nadella and the entire senior leadership team on my $1 billion LinkedIn playbook with AI. Never would have thought that would happen in a billion years, right? But it happened, and I'm able to carve that out, put that into my journal, put that into my appraisal. It's mentioned on my LinkedIn, and so you're putting these experiences in different places that are ultimately going to be helping you control your narrative. And then that's going to be something that next hiring manager sees. That's going to be something that helps de-risk that decision. You can't control everything, but what you can control is doing everything you can to become the obvious choice for what you want to do next. Now, I will tell you, there are times where you may be the obvious choice, but you still don't get it for a variety of reasons. There could be political elements, there could be a relationship, there could be all kinds of factors that you're up against. I mean, a lot of times when you apply for a job, you've got to go in knowing that you're up against 100, 200, 300, 1,000 people. Your odds are 1% or less of getting that job. So it's all about what are you going to do to enhance your stats? And the things that you can do to enhance your stats are warm up the relationship, improve your personal brand, and do everything you can to de-risk that hiring manager's decision based on your body of work. So work on that journaling in the moment so that you can show the experiences that you're having and the relevant wins and skills that you've got.
I love it. If you forget anything that he's gonna say here today, remember this. It's simple. You can control. First of all, you can control is controllable. You can get a piece of paper or pen or an iPad or a phone, and then track all the little things that you have accomplished and done. In fact, a lot of times, Carson, I do a lot of coaching, and a lot of times the hardest thing is people finding specifics about the things that they have done in the past, right? Microsoft is really good at forcing everyone to do that every 2 or 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about impact, and you have to show the impact, and you have to be really good at tracking those uh, impeccable, I would say, actions. And so, if you can pause right now, or if you're listening, and get a piece of paper, whatever you want to do, just start Even if you don't have it, start now, right? So in 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, or 5 years, you're gonna have all the stories because Carson is again, he's a master of. He can go to any room right now. He can jump in any podcast, and he'll have all those amazing stories, and he can just talk about it. Some of them I have heard of a couple of times, and in fact, some of the things that he just described is in his book. Um, and it's amazing how it's he got really good at it. Just
Well, you know what's powerful to me right now, Davison, is
yeah,
thinking about the implications of what AI can do. Play this out for me here. Like, I could literally go in and I could have Copilot or ChatGPT present to me a series of interview questions to break into tech sales, right? And then I could answer them on video, and I could take the transcript and I could say, with this transcript, write me a resume that will get me into tech sales. Bam. I mean, the things that are possible at your fingertips now that have never been at our fingertips, like, you can control the controllables. Now, granted, because this is democratized and everybody has access to it, everybody could go out and do this stuff, but they're not.
mm-hmm.
Everybody could go out and have a podcast, but they're not. And so the people that are doing the extra things, like when I got laid off 15 years ago, and then again about a year and a half later, it took me a long time to find gigs. I mean, I applied to over 1,600 jobs to get those two. And
Wow, 1,600.
but over the last 10 years, in my time at
Yeah.
Microsoft, I mean, I have people coming at me left and right. Because of personal brand, reputation, and the relationships that I've been able to create. And that's really what it comes down to.
I love it. First, keep record of all your wins, stories. Second, this is kind of reviewing here. I know you talked about a lot about relationships during the entire podcast so far, and personal branding. Now, let's talk a little bit more about Microsoft because that was all about personal branding, and now about tell us a little bit more about how did you hack into Microsoft, and within Microsoft, how are you being able to move in different roles, and where you are right now.
Yeah, it's not a straightforward, easy path, as I think a lot of people would agree, right? I mean, I think there's complexities into it, and when I can admit this, when I would look at tech sales roles before I got into tech sales, I mean, I would look at them, I might apply to them, and I didn't even get a second glance a lot of times because I didn't know the things that I needed to play up. I didn't have the right relationships in the space, and I wasn't talking about the right experiences. And so for me, as I kind of articulated earlier, how I got into tech sales was because of a relationship that I'd created before and the reputation that I had, and they brought me into this new role. But going into other roles, as I've moved, I made a move 2 years after I got into Microsoft. I made a move into the commercial business. And then about 4 years after that, I made a move into the enterprise business. And then 4 years after that, I made the move into tech for social impact. Now, each time it was based on relationships and reputation, each time. The results that I had been able to create in the couple of years in my first role and the relationships that I had made to get on the radar of the people that brought me into the commercial business were everything. So what happened was I was able to sell almost like a reseller devices into the enterprise space, into the small and mid-sized space, into the SMB space. And the claim to my fame was I sold to more people than anybody else in that entire channel's history, over 8,000. And a lot of them were in the small and mid-sized section, and geographically where I'm located in St. Louis. So the sellers here benefited a great deal from my activities. And so when one of them left their role, they needed to backfill themselves. And that was part of their agreement. And they needed to train their replacement. And they recommended me. because I had developed such a strong relationship with that person, but also because I had great results in that space. And so that brought them to recruit me into that space.
Mm.
Now, a few years later, I had actually, ironically, I won Gold Club. And by the end of the week, my role no longer existed.
Oh.
They had moved away at the time. They were moving away from field sellers and they were focusing on digital sellers. And I was a field seller. And so they put me into the specialist team. So I was an Azure specialist for about a quarter. And then what happened is, lo and behold, one day I got a phone call from somebody that I had worked with in the commercial space. They said, we have this opening working for this general manager that I used to work for. She had gone to healthcare. And my old colleague called me and said, there's an opening in St. Louis for an account executive role. Would you be interested? I said, yes. And literally that day, I'm on the phone with my old general manager. Everything went well, went through the loop, got the gig. But again, relationships, reputation. I did that role for a few years. Here's the thing in tech sales too. A lot of times, I mean, think of it like a snow globe. I mean, every fiscal year they take it and they give it a really good shake and you kind of let the chips fall where they may. You might get new accounts, new leadership team. So there were different iterations of roles throughout all that time. But over the time that I was in enterprise healthcare, I had a few different mixes of accounts. Was very fortunate, put together a platinum club year. And ultimately the following year, my manager at the time took another role. And so I still had the same GM, kind of raised my hand. Assume the position is something that's super important. If there's something that you want to do and you have the opportunity to go in and do it, there's only a few things that you can do. And I always tell people too, if you're on the outside looking in and you want to get into a role, ask to shadow people, talk to people that are doing the role so that you can get intel. Those types of things can help you break into tech sales. And then when you talk to the hiring managers, you already kind of know a day in the life, you know what they're doing, you're at the pulse of the business. You can speak to some of the challenges maybe that they're having and how you would attack them. And that will help de-risk that hiring manager's decision. But I assumed the position. My manager took another role. So I reached out to this GM that I already liked and liked me. And I said, hey, look, if you need me in any capacity to help, I'm happy to jump in kind of an interim role. And what was funny is my manager at the time actually told me, like, I don't think you have a shot at going for the role. You might as well not bother. I think they're looking for, somebody else and they may bring in somebody from the outside. I was on one MBU, manager business review. And what was funny is literally I just blew their socks off, right? They called me, my old manager called me after the call and said, I think you're now the front runner. The GM was pinging me on the side and says, she's interested in you going for this. So 2 months later, I was the full-time manager, the managing director for that group. I did that for another couple of years in different iterations. And then, again, they gave the snow globe a good shake. Lots of things transpired. I lost half my team. My manager had since retired. And then lo and behold, some people reached out in Tech for Social Impact that I had worked with in healthcare before. And they tapped me on the shoulder, asked if I was interested in coming over to help build a new culture there. And I ultimately said yes. So relationships and reputation every time is what's gotten me to where I've landed.
Wow. You're not you say a lot of things. It sounds very natural, but in order to be successful like you are, it takes an effort. It takes a skill. In fact, everyone listening to this right now, if you want to be a good salesman in tech sales, follow Carson on LinkedIn because he drops like every single day. He drops good information. We're talking about here how to get into tech sales. Now, once you get in it and you want to be good at it, follow Carson. And which brings me to probably the last question here because we're going so fast and it's almost 30 minutes. But a lot of people that I talk with, Carson, they really want to work for Microsoft. Of course, it's the number one now, and the technology is amazing. The people is amazing. The culture, everything, and I recommend 200-300% everyone that do everything that you can to get into Microsoft. You are a hiring manager, right? At times, so can you give 2 or 3 tips of someone who's trying to get into Microsoft? And I think everyone listening to this right now, they're probably waiting for this time as well. So give some of the nuggets, insiders information.
I'll
Some
tell you
hacking
exactly
prevention.
what I would. Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what I would do if I wasn't at Microsoft to break into Microsoft.
There we go.
I think the key. Look, everything comes down to probability and odds, right? If you go out and you apply to 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 jobs, even if you read the job description and you think it was tailor made for you, it might have been, but your chances of getting that job are slim to none, sadly, right? So it's a numbers game. And I use the exact same philosophy when I look at going out and prospecting into different organizations. If I reach out to one C-level VP, the chance of me getting a response is relatively small. But if I swarm the influencers, my chances go up exponentially. And I recommend you to do the same thing. We have these amazing tools at our disposal now with LinkedIn, with Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever may have you. And there's so many opportunities now. I was actually having a conversation earlier today. AI is being baked into job boards where you can go out, pump in your resume. It will match you to jobs based on your skills. Things that you can do to increase your batting average are key, and to get more at bats. If I was looking for a tech sales job today, this is exactly what I would do. I would go out to LinkedIn or LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and I would start looking at these organizations. With Microsoft on LinkedIn, you can literally go out there and look up by people. And here's the thing, the people you want to connect with, connecting, if you wanted to get an account executive role as an example, go out and not only reach out to people that have like a director or a general manager title and try to go out and connect with them and getting an informational with them. Don't ask for a job. Don't mention that you're looking for a job. Say that you're looking to parlay your experience in sales into technology and that you'd be very interested in getting 15 minutes of their time to learn more about, how they getting them their guidance about how they would recommend you go about doing that. I've done this for years. I mean, when I was looking for jobs years ago, that's exactly what I would do. And if you're looking at Microsoft and you want to create these types of relationships, go out and create those relationships with those directors and general managers. Now, don't just reach out to 1 or 2 or 5 or 10. Like I will reach out to as many people as I need to get what I need. My biggest deal I ever closed, I reached out to over 500 people on LinkedIn that were director and above. I had over 250 first degree connections. I met the president on LinkedIn. I was in his office the following week, brought him a copy of Satya's book. They weren't even looking at us. They were thinking about somebody else. They were going to go with a competitor. But the commercialized model that they wanted to do, we made perfect sense for. So we pitched that story. Took 2 years, went through a pandemic. This was a healthcare customer, went through a pandemic. They had 7 C-level changes, but we were so entrenched in there that even though this deal got totally, flipped on its head, when it closed, it was 9 figures.
Wow.
And here's the thing, like numbers game, reach out to over 500 people. If I was going out for jobs and I wanted to work at Microsoft, I'd reach out to every hiring manager I could possibly find trying to get meetings, get on as many radars as you can. Meet account executives, ask to shadow them or talk to them, get the intel, get the skinny, ask for an introduction to their boss. I mean, the warmth that you can add to those relationships matters. If somebody on my team came to me and said, hey, take a look at this person, I'm going to take a look at them. I don't have the time to go through 300 or 500 or 1,000 resumes. I just don't have time.
Make it easy.
Yeah, I wish I could. But the thing is, I can't. And so if you make great relationships with the sellers, even at Microsoft, and they introduce you to their bosses, those types of things matter. And you can't get discouraged. That would be my last tip. Don't get discouraged, because here's the thing, like there's so many things. I've been in this role for a year. And a lot of the seeds that I feel like we started planting a year ago are now just really reaping harvest, right? You don't water your garden once and see it sprout this beautiful, horticultural masterpiece. You take care of it every single day. You nurture it every day. And looking for a job is like a full-time job. You've got to really go after it every day. Growth mindset, positive mentality, and just continue to plant those seeds. It's all about relationships and reputation. So do everything you can to build your book of reputation while also going out and creating new relationships. And I guarantee you that if you do that consistently over time, you're going to be successful. The odds are with you.
Yes, I love. I love the closing. The odds are because I was like the power be the power
That's
with
it.
you. Like it's all about Carson like to say the hardball approach. It's a movie, right? From the
Moneyball. Yeah.
Moneyball. Because
The Moneyball approach. Yeah.
my father-in-law was big into baseball, and he used to mention that all
Good
the
book.
time. He was a
Yeah, good
numbers
book.
guy. And he was in the San Francisco area as well. So that's where the Oakland's, right?
Yeah, Oakland
Yep.
A's back in
Yeah, yeah.
2002. GM Billy Bean, and they started making data-driven decisions to go find ball players based on on-base percentage because they couldn't afford to compete with big teams like the Yankees, and they won. And they
That's
won because they were going after people that could flat out get on base, and that's really what it comes down to. If you play the numbers game in your favor, you can't help but be
make
successful.
the
I
first
know that I
base.
reach out to enough people with the best message possible, and I do it consistently over time. I can't help but be successful.
I love it. That was a perfect closing because don't think too much about hitting the four bases. Make to the first one, get to the network that you need to. Forget about the fourth base, the hiring manager. You just find the people, boots on the ground. The salaries are the ones. When the hiring manager wants to hire, they're gonna go to their salaries. They're gonna ask if they know people. So
That's it.
that's how you hack to Microsoft. Everyone, if you missed this episode, like you're sleeping
Give me a
on the
call.
call.
Yeah, reach
Hey,
out. If you want to talk to a hiring manager, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have a
hey,
conversation and give
oh
you
my
any
goodness,
guidance you need.
follow Carson. If you see any positions, tech for social impact, he might give you some guidance and go forward. Today I posted something about dreaming and then following your dreams. If your dreams to work for Microsoft, just do it. Uh, and if I was able to do it, Carson was able to do it. You can do it. So thank you so much, Carson. You're amazing, man. I look up to you and your example, a family man, and you're not only a manager, you're a good leader. You're one of the best leaders I
Thank
have
you.
seen in my career, and I look up to you. So I appreciate your example, and thanks so much for jumping in.
I'm blessed with being surrounded by good people. So that's the trick.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Tech Sales Funnels podcast, where we crack the code and uncover the strategies to break into tech sales. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to hack their way into this exciting career. Remember, hacking into tech sales isn't just a goal, it's a mission. Let's keep hacking, learning, and winning together. Catch you next time.